London, 1835. Beneath golden chandeliers and flawless waltzes, everyone knew her name, Lady Eveline Harrington. Beautiful, wealthy, promised to an ambitious count. But no one saw the truth behind her perfect smile. In one single night, everything shattered. Betrayed by those she trusted most, disgraced before all of London, Eveline vanished, swallowed by the whispers of society. Years later, she returns, not as a lady but as a servant, in a mansion cloaked in secrets, under the watchful eyes of a mysterious duke who seems to know far more than he admits. But fate has a cruel sense of irony, because sometimes the man who could ruin your life is the one destined to save your soul. Eveline is about to learn that not all secrets stay buried, and that true love can rise from the ashes of scandal. In the glittering ballroom of the Harrington townhouse, Lady Eveline was the very picture of perfection. Draped in a gown of shimmering ivory silk, her raven hair swept up in an elegant chignon, she moved through the crowd with practiced grace. The envy of every young lady, the desire of every gentleman. On the outside, she had it all. A sizable dowry, the admiration of the ton, a betrothal to the ambitious and dashing Count Ashcroft. But behind closed doors, Eveline's world was a gilded cage. Her father, the esteemed Marquis of Westbury, ruled her life with an iron fist, and her fiancé's affections ran no deeper than her inheritance. Still, Eveline played her part. She smiled prettily, laughed at all the right jokes, danced every dance. All the while, a quiet longing stirred in her heart, a yearning for something more than this superficial existence. But it only took one night for her carefully constructed facade to shatter. A forged scandal, a cruel betrayal by her own flesh and blood. In a blink, Eveline went from the belle of the ball to the disgrace of the season. Cast out by her father, publicly humiliated, abandoned by the man who claimed to love her, Eveline vanished from society. The shame was too much to bear. She retreated into the shadows, her once vibrant spirit dimmed. Years passed, the world moved on, until necessity drove Eveline out of hiding and back to the glittering world that had spurned her. Not as a guest, but as a servant in the household of a mysterious duke. As she donned her apron and cap, Eveline vowed to keep her head down, her past buried. But little did she know fate had other plans. For in the Duke of Ashbourne's manor, secrets lurked around every corner, and the very man who held her future in his hands might just be the key to unlocking her heart. The Duke of Ashbourne was a man of few words and fewer smiles. Known for his icy demeanor and sharp intellect, he was an enigma to the ton. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Some said he was a cold-hearted recluse. Others murmured of dark secrets and forbidden knowledge. But to Eveline he was simply her new employer. She kept her eyes lowered as she went about her duties, determined to blend into the background. It was a far cry from her previous life of luxury, but she found solace in the simplicity of her new role. Yet even as she scrubbed floors and polished silver, Eveline couldn't shake the feeling that the Duke's piercing gaze saw right through her. Those deep, stormy eyes seemed to hold a flicker of recognition, a hint of something she couldn't quite place. As the weeks turned to months, Eveline settled into a routine. She rose with the sun, worked until her fingers ached, and collapsed into bed each night. It was a hard life, but an honest one. And slowly the wounds of her past began to heal. But the peace was not to last. For one fateful afternoon, as Eveline was dusting the library shelves, she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. The Duke was in a heated discussion with none other than Count Ashcroft, the very man who had ruined her. Eveline froze, her heart pounding in her ears. She strained to catch their words, snippets of a dark plot that threatened to engulf them all. The Count was pressuring the Duke, demanding his support in some nefarious scheme. And to Eveline's shock, he was using her name as leverage. As the men's voices faded, Eveline was left reeling. The past she had tried so hard to escape had caught up with her once again. And now she was trapped in the middle of a dangerous game with no idea who to trust. Little did she know the Duke had secrets of his own. Secrets that were inextricably linked to her own tragic history. And as the truth began to unravel, Eveline would find herself caught between duty and desire, between revenge and redemption. For in the Duke of Ashbourne's world, nothing was as it seemed. And the greatest scandal of all was yet to come. As the days turned into weeks, Eveline found herself drawn into the Duke's orbit. Despite his gruff exterior, there was a magnetism about him, a depth that called to her. She caught glimpses of it in the rare moments when his guard was down. A softening of his eyes, a gentle curve of his lips, But it was during the grand masquerade ball that everything changed. The Duke's manor was transformed, a whirlwind of glittering costumes and swirling dancers. Eveline, tasked with serving the guests, felt like a sparrow among peacocks. As she navigated the crowded ballroom, a hand suddenly caught her elbow. She turned, finding herself face to face with the Duke himself. He was resplendent in a midnight blue coat, his mask a stark white against his tanned skin. "Dance with me," he murmured, his voice low and urgent. Eveline's heart stuttered. "Your Grace, I'm not dressed for—" But he was already leading her onto the dance floor. As he took her in his arms, the world seemed to fall away. They moved together, perfectly in sync, as if they had been dancing this waltz for a lifetime. In that moment, Eveline saw a flicker of the man beneath the Duke's icy facade, a man of passion and principle, of hidden depths and unspoken longing, and as the final notes of the music faded, she realized that her heart was no longer her own. But the spell was broken by a sudden commotion. Whispers rippled through the crowd, scandalized gasps and pointing fingers. Eveline followed their stares, her blood turning to ice. There, in the center of the ballroom, stood Count Ashcroft, and in his hands a sheaf of papers that could ruin her forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, his voice dripping with malice, "I have proof that Lady Eveline Harrington is not the innocent she pretends to be. These letters show that she is nothing more than a fallen woman, a disgrace to her name and title." Eveline felt the world tilt beneath her feet, the shame of her past exposed for all to see. She braced herself for the Duke's rejection, for the disgust that would surely fill his eyes. But instead she felt his hand tighten on hers. He stepped forward, his tall form shielding her from the crowd's cruel stares. "I believe the true disgrace here, Count Ashcroft, is a man who would seek to ruin a lady's reputation for his own gain." The Duke's voice was like steel, cold and unyielding. "Lady Eveline is under my protection, and I will not stand for such slander in my home." With those words, he swept Eveline out of the ballroom, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. And as she clung to his arm, her heart racing, Eveline knew that her life would never be the same. For better or for worse, her fate was now tied to the Duke of Ashbourne's, and the secrets that bound them together were only just beginning to unravel. In the days following the masquerade, Eveline found herself the subject of endless gossip and speculation. The ton was abuzz with rumors, each more outrageous than the last. Some whispered that she was the Duke's secret mistress. Others claimed she had bewitched him with some dark magic. But Eveline paid them no heed. Her thoughts were consumed by the Duke, by the way he had defended her honor, the feel of his strong arms around her. She went about her duties in a daze, her heart fluttering every time she caught a glimpse of his tall form. Yet the Duke seemed to be avoiding her. He buried himself in his work, spending long hours locked away in his study. Eveline told herself it was for the best. After all, what future could there be for a servant and a duke? But fate, it seemed, had a different plan. Late one evening, as Eveline was returning to her quarters, she stumbled upon the Duke in the gardens. He was sitting on a stone bench, his head in his hands, looking more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. "Your Grace?" she called out softly, hesitating. He looked up, his eyes filled with a pain that took her breath away. "Eveline, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you." She shook her head, moving closer. "You could never disturb me. Is everything all right?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he began to speak. He told her of his own troubled past, of the scandal that had nearly ruined his family. He spoke of his determination to restore honor to his name, to prove himself worthy of his title. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he confessed the truth that had haunted him for years. "That night at the ball, when I saw you, I knew. I knew that you were innocent, that the rumors about you were nothing but lies." Eveline's heart stopped. How could you know?" He met her gaze, his eyes burning with intensity. "Because I was there, Eveline. The night your reputation was ruined. I saw what truly happened. And I have spent every day since then trying to find a way to make it right." Eveline felt tears sting her eyes. All this time she had thought herself alone, abandoned by the world. But here, in this moonlit garden, she realized that she had an ally. A champion, a man who saw her for who she truly was. As the Duke reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, Eveline knew that there was no turning back. The connection between them was undeniable, a force stronger than scandal or society's scorn. And as his lips met hers in a kiss that set her soul on fire, Eveline knew that she would risk everything for this chance at love, for a future with the man who had saved her, in more ways than one, but the path ahead would not be easy, for the shadows of their pasts still loomed, and the enemies who sought to tear them apart were plotting their next move. It would take all of their strength, all of their courage to weather the storms to come. But in that perfect shining moment, nothing else mattered. Only the beat of their hearts and the promise of a love that could overcome anything. As the weeks passed, Eveline and the Duke found themselves drawn into a secret courtship. Stolen glances across crowded rooms, brushes of hands in passing, whispered conversations in shadowed alcoves. Each moment was a precious gift, a defiance of the rigid rules that governed their world. But even as their love blossomed, the specter of the past hung over them. Count Ashcroft, humiliated by the Duke's public rebuke, had retreated from London society. But Eveline knew better than to believe he had given up. Men like him did not take defeat lightly. Her fears were confirmed when, one gray morning, a letter arrived. The seal was unmistakable, the Count's family crest pressed into blood-red wax. With trembling hands, Eveline broke the seal and began to read. The contents made her blood run cold. The Count had not been idle in his absence. He had been gathering allies, collecting debts, weaving a web of influence that stretched to the highest echelons of society. And now he was ready to strike. He demanded a meeting with the Duke, a final ultimatum. If the Duke did not renounce Eveline and cast her aside, the Count would unleash a scandal that would ruin them both. He had proof, he claimed, of the Duke's own dark secrets, secrets that would destroy his reputation, his very name. Eveline's heart raced as she read the words, each one a dagger to her soul. She knew what she had to do. She could not let the Duke sacrifice everything for her sake. She had to leave, to disappear, to protect him from the ruin that followed her like a curse. With a heavy heart, she penned a note. A goodbye, an apology, a declaration of the love she knew she could never claim. She left it on his desk, a single rose beside it, a token of all they had shared. And then, in the gray light of dawn, she slipped away. Away from the manor, away from the life she had built, away from the man who held her heart. Each step was agony, but she forced herself onward, tears streaming down her face. But she had underestimated the Duke. He was not a man to let go easily, not when it came to the woman he loved. When he found her note, he did not hesitate. He rode out after her, his heart pounding, his mind reeling. He found her on the outskirts of the city, her cloak billowing in the wind, her face pale and streaked with tears. And there, on that lonely road, he made his stand. I will not let you go, Eveline. Not now, not ever. She shook her head, her voice choked with emotion. You don't understand. The Count, I know, the Duke interrupted. And I don't care. Let him do his worst. I will face any scandal, any ruin, as long as I have you by my side. Eveline's heart swelled, even as fresh tears fell. But your reputation, your name. He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze fierce with love. You are my reputation. You are my name. You are everything to me, Eveline, and I will fight for you, for us, until my last breath. And there, on that windswept road, they clung to each other. Two lost souls finding home at last. The battle was not over. The Count's threat still loomed, dark clouds on the horizon. But in that moment, they knew they could face anything, as long as they faced it together. For their love was a force that could not be broken, a light that could not be dimmed, and it would lead them through the darkness to a future brighter than they had ever dared to dream. News of the Duke's public declaration spread like wildfire through the ton. Drawing rooms buzzed with gossip, gentlemen's clubs hummed with speculation. The Duke of Ashbourne, the most eligible bachelor in England, had chosen a servant for his bride. It was a scandal of unprecedented proportions, but the Duke and Eveline paid no heed to the whispers. They were too lost in the joy of their newfound love, in the plans they were making for a future together. The Duke had insisted on a proper courtship, complete with chaperoned walks in the park and intimate dinners under the watchful eye of his housekeeper. Eveline felt as if she were living in a dream. The way the Duke looked at her, the gentle touch of his hand, the soft brush of his lips against her knuckles. It was everything she had ever longed for, everything she had thought forever out of reach. But the Count's shadow still loomed. He had been suspiciously silent since his ultimatum, a fact that set Eveline's nerves on edge. She knew he was planning something, biding his time until he could strike at their most vulnerable moment. That moment came on a crisp autumn evening, as the Duke and Eveline were enjoying a quiet supper. A footman entered, his face grave, a letter on a silver tray. The Duke's brow furrowed as he read the contents, his jaw tightening with each line. "What is it?" Eveline asked, fear knotting her stomach. The Duke looked up, his eyes filled with a steely resolve. "The Count has made his move. He has called a meeting of the lords to present his so-called proof of my misdeeds." Eveline's heart sank. Then it's over. He has won. But the Duke shook his head. "No, my love. This is not the end. It is merely the beginning." He rose from the table, his tall form radiating a quiet strength. "I will face these accusations head-on. I will tell the truth of what happened all those years ago. The truth that the Count has tried so hard to bury." Eveline's eyes widened. "But your reputation, your standing, mean nothing without honor," the Duke finished. "I have hidden from my past for too long, Eveline. It is time to face it, to clear my name and yours." He reached out, taking her hand in his. "And I want you by my side when I do, as my equal, my partner, my wife." Eveline's breath caught. "Your wife?" The Duke smiled, a sight that still made her heart skip. "If you'll have me. I know I'm not the conventional choice, but..." She silenced him with a kiss, pouring all her love, all her joy into the touch of her lips. "I will have no other, your grace, no other but you." And so, as the ton gathered to witness the Duke's downfall, they were met with a sight none had expected. The Duke and his new Duchess, hand in hand, heads held high, ready to face whatever storm may come, for they knew that together they could weather any tempest, that their love was a shelter, a sanctuary, a beacon in the darkest of nights. And as the Count's lies were laid bare, as the truth of the Duke's honor and Eveline's innocence was finally revealed, they stood tall. Two hearts beating as one, two souls forever entwined, a love story for the ages written in the stars themselves. The Lord's chamber was a sea of shocked faces as the Duke of Ashbourne laid bare the truth of his past. He spoke of a young man's folly, of a duel of honor turned tragic. He revealed how the Count, envious of the Duke's position and wealth, had twisted the truth, painting the Duke as a murderer and a villain. But the Duke had proof of his own, letters, witness accounts, documents that the Count had thought long destroyed. With each revelation, the Count's face grew paler, his eyes more frantic. His web of lies was unraveling, thread by thread. Eveline watched with a heart full to bursting. This was the man she loved, the man she had always known him to be, a man of integrity, of courage, of unwavering principle. As he spoke, his voice ringing with conviction, she felt a swell of pride so fierce it brought tears to her eyes. And when he was done, when the last damning piece of evidence was presented, the chamber erupted. Lords shouted for the Count's arrest, for his immediate removal from their ranks. The Count, his face a mask of fury and defeat, was dragged away, his threats and curses echoing in the stone halls. The Duke turned to Eveline, his eyes shining with a joy so profound it took her breath. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "It's over, my love. We're free." Eveline smiled through her tears. "No, my darling. It's only the beginning." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. There were apologies to be made, explanations to be given. The ton, once so quick to condemn, now fell over themselves to congratulate the happy couple. Invitations poured in, each host eager to claim the honor of introducing the new Duchess of Ashbourne to society. But through it all, Eveline and the Duke remained true to themselves. They attended the necessary functions, smiled at the right people, made the appropriate small talk. But their true joy was found in the quiet moments, a shared laugh over breakfast, a stolen kiss in the gardens, a whispered, "I love you," in the dark of night. And when the time came for them to retreat to the Duke's country estate, to begin their life together in earnest, they went with hearts full of hope and heads full of dreams. As the carriage rolled down the winding lane, Eveline leaned her head on the Duke's shoulder. "Are you happy, my love?" she asked softly. He turned to her, his eyes filled with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "More than I ever thought possible. And it's all because of you, Eveline. You have given me a life I never dared to dream of, a love I never thought I deserved." She reached up, tracing the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "And you have given me the world, but more than that you have myself. You have shown me that I am worthy of love, of respect, of happiness, and for that, I will love you all the days of my life." As the sun set over the hills, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne began their new chapter. A chapter of laughter and love, of trials and triumphs, of a partnership that would stand the test of time, for they had found in each other not just a lover, but a friend, a soulmate. a true partner in every sense of the word. And together they would write a story that would be told for generations to come. A story of a love that conquered all, a love that knew no bounds, a love in the end that changed everything. Life at the Duke's country estate was a revelation for Eveline. Gone were the stifling constraints of London society, the constant scrutiny and judgment. Here, among the rolling hills and sprawling gardens, she could finally breathe, could finally be herself. The Duke, too, seemed transformed. Away from the pressures of his title and the memories of his past, he laughed more easily, smiled more freely. He took Eveline on long walks through the countryside, sharing stories of his childhood, his dreams for their future. And oh, what a future it promised to be. The Duke's love for Eveline only seemed to grow with each passing day. He showered her with tokens of his affection, a wildflower picked on a morning ride, a poem penned in her honor, a tender kiss stolen in a quiet moment. Eveline, in turn, poured her heart into their home. She filled the rooms with laughter and light, with the warmth of her spirit. Under her gentle guidance, the once cold and forbidding manor became a true home, a haven of love and joy. But even in this idyll, the shadows of the past lingered. There were nights when the Duke would wake, sweat-soaked and shaking, haunted by the memories of that fateful duel. There were days when Eveline would catch a glimpse of herself in the mirror and see the ghost of the scared, lonely girl she had once been. But now they had each other to lean on. The Duke held Eveline through her nightmares, whispering words of comfort and love until the terror passed. Eveline soothed the Duke's troubled brow, reminding him with every touch, every kiss, that he was not defined by his past. Together, they began to heal, to build a life based not on the expectations of others, but on the truth of their own hearts. And when, on a golden autumn morning, Eveline discovered that she was with child, their joy knew no bounds. The Duke wept as he held her, his hand reverent on the slight swell of her belly. A child, my love, a piece of you and me growing inside you. It's a miracle. Eveline smiled through her tears. A miracle born of our love, born of the life we have made together. As the months passed and Eveline's body blossomed with new life, the Duke doted on her with a tenderness that took her breath. He read to her belly each night, his voice soft and lilting. He rubbed her aching feet, brought her whatever strange food she craved, held back her hair as morning sickness took its toll. And when the time came, when Eveline's pains began and the midwife was called, he never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction, wiped the sweat from her brow, whispered encouragement and love. And when their son finally entered the world, his cry strong and clear, the Duke and Duchess wept together. This was their miracle, their perfect creation, the embodiment of a love that had survived against all odds. They named him James after the Duke's father, a strong name, a name of honor and integrity. As Eveline cradled him to her breast, as the Duke traced his tiny features with a trembling finger, they knew that this was what they had been fighting for all along. Not just for themselves, but for the chance to build something beautiful, something lasting, something to leave behind as a testament to the power of their love. And as they stood there, the three of them, bathed in the soft glow of a new dawn, they knew that they had found it, that this right here was where they belonged, now and for always. End of Chapter 8. Tentar novamente continue Chapter 9. The years passed in a blur of joy and laughter, of first steps and first words, of love that only seemed to deepen with each turning of the seasons. Little James grew into a fine young boy, with his father's quick wit and his mother's kind heart. Eveline and the Duke relished every moment of parenthood. They chased James through the gardens, taught him to ride his first pony, read him stories by the fire each night. The sound of his laughter, the feel of his small hand in theirs, the sleepy weight of him in their arms. These were the precious gifts they cherished above all else. But even as they reveled in the joys of family life, they never forgot the wider world. The Duke used his position and influence to champion the causes dear to his heart. He fought for the rights of the poor and downtrodden, for justice and equality. Eveline was his constant companion, his sounding board and his strength. Together they opened their home to those in need. They hosted salons where great minds could meet and debate, where art and literature and science could flourish. They became known not just for their wealth and their title, but for their generosity of spirit, their unwavering commitment to what was right. And through it all, their love only grew stronger. They still stole moments just for themselves, a quiet breakfast in bed, a dance under the stars, a whispered conversation in the hush of the night. They learned each other anew each day, discovered fresh joys and deeper intimacies. When the invitations began to arrive for the London season, they hesitated. The memories of their past struggles, of the pain they had endured, were still fresh. But in the end, they knew they could not hide away forever. They had a duty, not just to their title, but to the change they hoped to bring. And so they returned to London, heads held high, hands clasped tightly. They faced the whispers and the stares, the barely concealed curiosity. But they also found allies, friends who had been inspired by their story, who shared their vision for a better world. One evening, as they readied themselves for yet another ball, Eveline found herself pausing before the mirror. The gown she wore was a marvel of silk and lace, the deep blue of a summer sky, but it was not the dress that caught her eye, but the woman wearing it. She hardly recognized herself. Gone was the scared, broken girl she had once been. In her place stood a woman of strength and grace, a woman who knew her own worth, a woman who was deeply, unshakably loved. The Duke came up behind her, his eyes meeting hers in the glass. "What are you thinking, my love?" he murmured, his arms encircling her waist. Eveline leaned back into his embrace. "I'm thinking about how far we've come, about all the hurt and the heartache, all the obstacles we've overcome, and I'm thinking about how through it all I've had you." He turned her in his arms, his gaze tender. "And you always will. In this life and the next, in every world and every time. I am yours, Eveline, now and forever." Their kiss was a promise, a vow renewed, and as they stepped out into the night, into the glitter and the grandeur of the ball, they carried that promise with them. They danced and they laughed, they charmed and they dazzled. But more than that, they showed the world the truth of what they had found, a love that had been tested, a love that had been forged in the fires of adversity, a love that had, against all odds, prevailed. As the seasons turned and the years slipped by, the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne became a shining example of all that was good and true in the world. Their love story, once the scandal of the Tun, became a legend whispered about in drawing rooms and ballrooms, a tale to inspire hope in even the coldest of hearts. Their son James grew into a fine young man, with all the best qualities of both his parents. He had his father's strength and integrity, his mother's compassion and grace. Under their loving guidance he blossomed, becoming a leader in his own right, a champion for the causes of justice and equality. Eveline and the Duke watched with hearts full to bursting as James found his own love, a young woman of spirit and intelligence who shared his passions and his dreams. They stood proudly at his side as he exchanged his vows, as he started his own family, and when on a crisp autumn morning they welcomed their first grandchild into the world, they wept with a joy that defied words. This, they knew, was their greatest legacy. Not their titles or their wealth, but this new generation, born of love, destined to carry on the work they had begun. As the Duke cradled his tiny granddaughter in his arms, he marveled at the journey that had brought him here. The path he had walked from the lonely, guilt-ridden man he had once been, to the husband, the father, the grandfather he was now. He looked at Eveline, his eyes shining with a love that time had only deepened. "It's all because of you, my darling," he whispered. "You saved me. You gave me a life I never thought to have, a happiness I never dared to dream of." Eveline smiled, her hand soft on his cheek. "We saved each other, my love. We found in each other the strength to face our demons, to build something beautiful from the ashes of our pasts." They sat together in the garden, watching as James chased his laughing daughter through the autumn leaves. The sun was warm on their faces, the breeze gentle in their hair. It was a moment of perfect peace, of pure, unblemished happiness. And yet even in this idyll they knew that their work was not done. The world was still a place of injustice, of inequality, of suffering. There were still battles to be fought, minds to be changed, lives to be touched. But they would face those battles together, as they had faced everything, with love as their shield, with hope as their sword. They had learned through all the trials and the triumphs that there was no obstacle they could not overcome, no challenge they could not meet, as long as they had each other. And so they sat, hand in hand, hearts entwined, looking out over the world they had helped to shape. A world that was a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more just because of the love they shared. It was a love that had started in the most unlikely of places, under the most impossible of circumstances. A love that had been tested by fire, forged by adversity. But it was a love that had endured, a love that had triumphed, A love in the end that had changed not just their lives but the world itself. And as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne knew that this, right here, was where they belonged. In each other's arms, in each other's hearts, forever and always, until the end of their days. As the years continued to pass, the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne became more than just a couple. They became an institution. Their love, their dedication to each other and to the greater good, became a shining beacon in a world that often seemed filled with darkness. They used their position and their influence to effect real change. They championed education for all, regardless of class or station. They fought for the rights of workers, for safe conditions and fair wages. They opened shelters for the homeless, hospitals for the sick, homes for the orphaned. In all they did, they were guided by a simple principle: that every life had value, that every soul deserved a chance to thrive. It was a belief born of their own experiences, of the challenges they had faced and overcome. And through it all, their love remained the foundation, the bedrock upon which all else was built. In the quiet moments, in the spaces between the grand gestures and the public triumphs, they found their strength in each other. They walked together in the gardens, hand in hand, talking of everything and nothing. They sat together in the library, reading to each other from their favorite books, debating the ideas that sparked their passions. They danced together under the stars, lost in the music and in the magic of each other's embrace. Even as the lines on their faces deepened, as the silver crept into their hair, their love only seemed to grow stronger, more vibrant. They had learned through all the years and all the trials that true love was not a fleeting flame, but an eternal fire. And when, in the fullness of time, the Duke fell ill, Eveline was by his side as she had always been. She held his hand through the long nights, read to him from his favorite poems, whispered words of love and comfort. The Duke, even in his weakened state, found strength in her presence. "You are my light, Eveline," he whispered, his voice thin but filled with conviction. "You have been my guide, my compass, my true north. I would be lost without you." Eveline smiled through her tears, her hand gentle on his brow. "You will never be lost, my love. I will always be with you, in this world and the next. Our souls are entwined now and forever." When the Duke breathed his last, it was with Eveline's name on his lips, with the echo of their love in his heart. And though her grief was a vast and yawning chasm, Eveline found solace in the knowledge that their love had been a rare and precious gift. She carried on their work, their legacy. She mentored the next generation, shared the wisdom born of a lifetime of love and loss, of joy and sorrow. She became a grandmother, a great-grandmother, the matriarch of a family that spanned generations and continents. And every day she woke with the memory of her love, of the man who had seen her, truly seen her, and loved her for all that she was. The man who had taught her the meaning of courage, of sacrifice, of devotion. The man who had given her the greatest gift of all, a life filled with purpose, with passion, with a love that knew no bounds. And as she sat in their garden, in the golden light of a fading summer day, Eveline knew that though he was gone, their love lived on, in the laughter of their children, in the dreams of their grandchildren, in the very fabric of the world they had woven together, stitch by stitch, day by day, with the thread of their love. It was a love that had changed everything, a love that had left the world a brighter, better place, a love in the end that would never ever die. As the sun set on Eveline's life, she found herself reflecting more and more on the extraordinary journey she had taken. From the naive young girl she had been, to the scandal that had nearly destroyed her, to the love that had saved her in every way a person could be saved. She spent long hours in the gardens, lost in memory, lost in the echoes of a life fully lived. She could almost hear the Duke's laughter on the breeze, could almost feel the warmth of his hand in hers. There were times in the stillness of the night when she would swear she could hear his voice, whispering to her from beyond the veil. "I'm here, my love," he seemed to say. "I'm waiting for you." And Eveline would smile, a secret smile, filled with the knowledge of a love that even death could not dim. As her days dwindled, as her body grew frail, Eveline's spirit only seemed to strengthen. She faced the end with the same grace, the same courage with which she had faced all of life's challenges. Her family gathered around her, a testament to the love she had nurtured, to the legacy she had built. They held her hand, shared stories and memories, laughed and cried together. And when the moment came, when Eveline drew her last breath, it was with a smile on her face and peace in her heart. For she knew that this was not an ending but a beginning of a new adventure, a new chapter in a love story that had spanned a lifetime and beyond. As the news of her passing spread, the world mourned the loss of a woman who had been a beacon of hope, of courage, of unwavering love. The story of the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne, of the love that had overcome all odds, became more than just a story. It became a legend whispered in the halls of great houses, shared around the fires of humble homes, a legend that inspired generations, that gave hope to the hopeless, courage to the frightened. For in the end, their story was not just about them. It was about the power of love itself, the power to heal, to transform, to make the impossible possible. It was a reminder, in a world that often seemed filled with darkness, that light could always be found, that hope could always rise from the ashes of despair, that love, true love, could conquer all. And as the years turned to decades, as decades turned to centuries, the legend of the Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne only grew. Their names became synonymous with love itself, with the very idea of a love that could endure, that could triumph. Their story became a part of the fabric of the world, woven into the very heartbeat of humanity. And somewhere, in a place beyond time, beyond the veil of mortal understanding, two souls danced together under an endless sky. The Duke and his Duchess reunited at last. Their love eternal, their story never-ending. A testament to the power, the beauty, the sheer indomitable force of love. And so, my dear readers, we come to the end of our tale. The story of Eveline and her Duke, of a love that defied the odds, that changed the course of history itself. It is a story that reminds us of the power we each hold within us. The power to choose love over fear, courage over comfort, hope over despair. Eveline and the Duke were not born heroes. They were fallible, flawed human beings, each struggling under the weight of their own pains, their own doubts. But in each other they found the strength to rise above their circumstances, to challenge the status quo, to fight for what they believed in, to love, not just with their hearts but with their very souls. Their story is a gift, a reminder that no matter how dark the night, dawn will always come, that no matter how lost we may feel, love will always light the way home. So let us take their example to heart. Let us face our own challenges with the same grace, the same indomitable spirit. Let us love fiercely, boldly, without reservation. Let us remember that every moment, every breath is a chance to write our own story, to create a life of purpose, of passion, of unending love. The Duke and Duchess of Ashbourne showed us the way. Now it falls to us to follow in their footsteps, to carry their legacy forward, to live, to love, to leave the world a brighter place than we found it. This is their story, yes, but it is also ours. A story of hope, of redemption, of the transformative power of love. A story that will live on, as long as there are hearts to hear it, souls to be touched by its message. A story, in the end, of us all. Author's note. Dear readers, thank you for journeying with me through the pages of this tale. It has been an honor and a privilege to share the story of Eveline and her Duke with you. Their love story is a reminder of the beauty and resilience of the human spirit, of the power we each hold to shape our own destinies. May their example inspire you as it has inspired me. May you find the courage to face your own challenges, to love without fear, to live with passion and purpose. And may you always remember, no matter where your own story takes you, that you are the hero of your own tale, that your life, your love, has the power to change the world. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for being a part of this journey, with love and gratitude. Liking this video, and sharing it with others who might find inspiration in its message. Your support means the world to me, and helps me to continue creating content that uplifts, inspires, and reminds us all of the power of love. Until our next adventure together, my friends. The story of Lady Eveline and the Duke of Ashbourne is more than a simple love tale. It is a powerful narrative that explores timeless themes of resilience, redemption, and the transformative capacity of true love. At the beginning, we see Eveline as a naive young woman, trapped in the constraints of Regency society. She is a pawn in the power game of the men around her, her worth measured only by her dowry, and her ability to make an advantageous match. When she is betrayed by those who should protect her, we see the fragility of her position. She is easily discarded, her reputation ruined, her future seemingly lost. But it is in this moment of profound darkness that we see the first spark of Eveline's inner strength. Rather than succumb to despair, she chooses survival. She rebuilds herself piece by piece, finding new purpose as a servant in the Duke's household. The Duke, in turn, is a man haunted by his own past. He carries the guilt of past actions, condemned by a society that values reputation above all else. But unlike the other men in Eveline's life, the Duke sees beyond her position as a servant. He sees her soul, her innate goodness, her quiet strength. Together, Eveline and the Duke embark on a journey of mutual redemption. They face the prejudices of society, the ghosts of their own pasts, and the machinations of those who seek to destroy them. Each challenge they overcome only strengthens their bond, their determination to build a life based on mutual love and respect. Their story reminds us that we are not defined by our past mistakes or by the expectations of others. That within each of us lies the capacity for change, for growth, for transformation. Eveline and the Duke are not perfect, but they are perfectly human in their flaws and in their desire to be better. More than that, their story is a testament to the power of love to heal old wounds, to break down barriers, to inspire greatness. The love they share is not a superficial fairy tale love, but a love forged in the fire of adversity. It is a love that demands courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering faith in each other. Through their love, Eveline and the Duke not only transform themselves but also the world around them. They become advocates for justice, using their privilege to uplift those less fortunate. They create a legacy that transcends their own lives, a legacy of compassion, equality, and hope. And perhaps that is the most enduring lesson of their story. That love, when it is true and fearless, has the power to change not just individuals but entire communities, even the very fabric of society itself. That every act of kindness, every stand against injustice, every choice to see the humanity in others, creates ripples that extend far beyond our own lives. So let the story of Eveline and the Duke be your inspiration. Let it remind you that you are the hero of your own journey, that within you lies a strength, a resilience, a capacity for love that is greater than any obstacle. Let it encourage you to live with courage, with compassion, with an unwavering commitment to your deepest values. For this is how we change the world, one love story at a time. This is how we create a brighter, kinder, more just future for us all. May we all have the courage to love as Eveline and the Duke loved, fiercely, fearlessly, with our entire being. That is the promise and the challenge of their story. May we prove ourselves worthy of it.